Firstly, Minister, I think you make a fascinating point to propose that post that the security experts were then the ones who were supposed to determine items such as the form, shape, and character of items such as the fire pool. My challenge is this, is perhaps if you could elaborate for us, Minister, where else has this practice been done? Does every other security project in rural communities naturally assume that if there is pressure issues in terms of the firefighting equipment, that in fact it is the first logical protocol is to build a swimming pool? That what I saw on site had fire hoses that were built, that were attached to the wall. We then asked the honorable firefighters who came to do a demonstration. Sadly, it lacked a bit of music, but be that as it may, we asked the question, what alternatives could have been there? I must assume you have your experts. I'm asking the people who deal with fire in rural communities generally all the time, what alternatives were there? They said if we were to install a booster that could improve the pressure, we could in fact have taken a different route. Now, I'm fascinated, Minister. So if you can establish for us, and that this practice is in fact common, that there are many other, where you talk about a body of water, which I find fascinating. The second point is this, is that for a fire pool, as it's now subsequently been told, and I refuse to use that term because I think we can't be insulted like that. We must rather call it a swimming pool because that's what it is. That it was fascinating that it is nicely tiled, it is paved, it's got an entertainment area, it oversees above, nice parking, it flows naturally into the property. To me, the aesthetics of the issue suggest that the original intention was for it to be a swimming pool. And the public protector makes the point to say the matter was raised with the presidency. And in fact, that's how we invoke the National Key Points Act. And my challenge with this issue is that it was clear from the beginning that the president was going to be liable for the costs. That's the invoking of the law. And then when you realize there was a cap on the issue, we then moved away from the National Key Points Act. And I submit to you that it is undue benefit. It cannot be argued that in the exercise that has been demonstrated to us, that it's for that purpose. I mean, it's quite fascinating. There's a wall around it for privacy, which if it was just for firefighting purposes, I'm battling to understand why it was so elaborately put together. The third point here, and I've raised this issue, I'm wanting to argue, I'm unclear about this issue, Minister. How you begin to say it is improbable that the president will liaise with such a junior official. You might be entitled to your view in this regard. And your further point says, we use the point about the president's name being invoked, which is both tabled in the SIU report, it's tabled in your report. I find it fascinating that there's a common theme across any project that pertains to, and parallels to this issue are the Waterkloof landing, where the fundamental argument is always that, no, we just use the president's name. And people are that submissive that in the name of the president, regardless of how illegal, how obscure the project might be, in the name of the president, when he says it, we suspend all thinking. We can't draw conclusions for ourselves to say, no, this thing is wrong, it's illegal, it's corruption. No, none of the above. As long as you use the president's name, then the project must file right through. The plane must land at Waterkloof, the swimming pool must be built, because it's immaterial who's giving the instruction, as long as it's in the name. The third point I want, linked to this particular point, is that the public protector highlights specifically for this reason, that the project manager or the architect, Minenhle Makanya, became effectively the project manager. And someone who then could deviate funding in the public works budget for this project to be completed. So clearly he was acting under someone's instruction. I would assume if the president has hired an architect, that architect, if the public protector makes the correlation to say that architect became project manager effectively, which is quite bizarre that an independent contractor was able to direct such key ministries. But the points overriding all the senior levels that you've highlighted, simply then, in the instruction of the president, then acted. We cannot at this committee simply say there's ignorance on the part of the president. I find that it would be quite offensive to say the president simply did not know, unless we're willing to go there and say it was a project he didn't know. Or furthermore, that the instruction to the architect in this regard, as the public protector highlights it, was in fact the instruction of the president. So I would submit. I mean, it would be bizarre if I came to you today and said the president has given the instruction that you must absolve him of any responsibility on the Nkandla project in the name of the president, that you would succumb to that. Why are you implying that other people are simply victims of the same? The other point here is that the issue of cost inflation is, I think, all of us can agree on. But I want to propose that it was in fact an exercise in cross-subsidization. That yes, a project was committed, what is an equivalent of an RDP house was built for 6.4 million rands. But where is the balance in payment? I want to submit that it was reattributed to the other projects that were taking place in the House. I want to say, Minister, just like any South African, to arrive there and for the proposal to be made that because it's shoddy work, it's not luxury, I think is a misnomer. No South African has a bulletproof, heavily secured clinic at their doorstep. The president in this instance has, and even if the project of the clinic is insufficient and is poor, doesn't suggest that fundamentally that is a benefit that the president has derived to which he must pay. We can't, to sit here and not imply that, to say the public protector is wrong in this regard would be undermining another institution of government. So if I understand how projects of this nature have worked, in that there's an inflation of cost, how am I, as a South African, being willing to say more work must be done, and whether that work will be done at the cost that it is supposed to be done for? I submit to you that the history, you build your reputation on the basis of what you've done, not what you are going to do. Therefore, the history of this project says there's inflation of cost. I cannot, as a member of parliament, not tasked to defend number one, that I can simply say it is logical and acceptable that more work must be done. I can see, but I do believe that where it's incomplete, whatever evidence must be brought must be put forward, but I would submit to you that the work that must be complete must ultimately be for the president's account. Because as the taxpayer, as a South African, it would be illogical to say that more inflated costs must go forward against the backdrop of a lack of a forensic evidence as to why a house that is that price, what happened to the difference in money. So, Chairperson, I want to submit that, to me, it became quite crystal clear, having been on site, that the president has derived significant benefit, that the public protector is correct in her submission, that in fact this particular project, we can argue issues of scope creep, etc. The conclusion fundamentally is that no South African, in fact what should have been a security upgrade became a presidential upgrade. Therefore, if that is the approach we must take, then the asset must belong to the people of South Africa. If it is to belong to President Jacob Zuma, he must be able to finance a portion of it. For as I asked General Zuma, who I'm most grateful for the tour that he gave, I asked the question, what happens tomorrow morning when President Zuma decides he no longer wants to be the president? That asset is to his benefit and to his inheritance on land that belongs to a trust that the people of South Africa must finance. And I believe the public protector was correct that there's undue benefit, and the president must be able to pay back a portion of the money that is accrued. Thanks, Chair.